Can you guys tell my glasses are dirty? I'm not gonna fix that. Ooh, yeah, that's a big glass. I think I can actually film with my glasses. Oh my God, this is making me so happy. I can actually see the screen and see that screen. And I think we should be able to like get moving. What's up, nerds? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Maddie. If you're new here, I hope your day is going well. Did y'all know that Kindle Unlimited just skips to the page 1 of chapter 1 in ebooks instead of letting you read like the dedication or the stupid fucking playlist or I don't know, the trigger warnings, where in the case of Haunting Adeline, you find out that this book was banned for right-wing conspiracy theories. And like, obviously there's a bunch more to it, but let's just unpack this, shall we? Well, hello, yes, welcome to the worst show on earth where me, Maddie, your host, finds garbage on the internet and reads it for you. This book was brought to my attention by a comment on my Gothicana review, and I thought that it sounded fascinating. They said, you should read the TikTok stalker romance. And I, being of complete sound mind and body, said, TikTok stalker romance? Color me intrigued. Now, since I had just recently posted a couple of rant reviews, I try and space these videos out to give my mental capacity time to recharge, so to speak. So when I went to go find the first book in this duology, I was very surprised to find that the first book is pretty hard to get a hold of and also like $26 for the paperback, which no thank you. Because this book had apparently been banned, it was kind of hard to get a hold of, so when I decided on using my 6 free trial of Kindle Unlimited, I just took advantage of that and started reading this book on my Kindle app. And to quote the cinematic masterpiece Chicken Run, put your head between your knees and kiss your butt goodbye because we've got places to go with this one. So first off, the book starts off relatively strong. I have talked about on this channel that indie authors, or at least Kindle Unlimited published authors, tend to not really know how the English language works. This book actually starts off in a way that I was completely thinking that the author had an understanding of grammatical concepts. I was wrong.
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
Enough stalling. Let's talk about the plot of Haunting Adeline. This follows Adeline, who is a successful indie author from one of my favorite places in the world for these types of books to be written in. If you guessed Seattle, you've been here a long time. If you don't know, I grew up in Western Washington, and every time I read one of these books, I always know for a fact if the author has actually ever even been to Seattle, because 9 times out of 10, they haven't, and it's really fucking crystal clear. This doesn't stop people from writing about the area though, because of course, why not? Apparently it's one of the most literary places in the country. But Adeline, or Addie as she's called throughout the entire book, starts off the story by moving into her grandmother's house. Her grandmother's deceased, by the way. This is where we also find out that Addie has a tumultuous relationship with her mother.
My mother is a bitch, plain and simple. She's always had a chip on her shoulder, and for the life of me, I can't figure out why.
First, it seems like the tension between Addie and her mother over Addie moving into her grandmother's house is going to be like a main conflict of the story. It's not. Short and simple, Addie has mommy issues and they are never resolved. I would be asking a lot of this book in the character development part category, and we're not gonna get there, sorry. So we find out relatively early on that Gigi, Addie's great-grandmother, not to be confused with Nana, which is Addie's grandmother, Gigi was murdered. Stalked and murdered, to be precise. There's a bunch of these 1940s letters interspersed throughout the story, so we know more about Gigi than Addie does at any given point, typically speaking. Which is weird because the letters are part of the plotline, but we start reading them a lot earlier than she has access to them. The story details about how she starts an affair with a man named Ronaldo and how things kind of go south. The beginning of this book seems to imply that history is repeating itself and maybe the spirits of this couple are kind of creating the same events over and over again. The house is haunted and the spirit of Ronaldo is coming back to exact revenge on his dead lover's ancestors, or so you could think. Which, to be honest, is actually kind of steamy and interesting. So it didn't happen. Back to our main character. Addie is at a book signing because bear in mind, she's such a successful indie author that she sells out book signings and she doesn't have to have a main physical residence because she just travels the country doing book signings and is so wildly popular she can publish whenever she wants. I'm gonna just stop you right there. Point me a indie author who does that. Because I was a bookseller for many years, and big name authors have trouble filling book seats, like book event seats. And you're telling me this indie author has the ability to completely change, like up and move every, like wherever to wherever she wants to go off of books we don't even know the content of? Is a big lass. Yes, it's 10 a.m. on a Sunday, which is technically speaking a great time for brunch. I just happen to be by myself talking to a camera while drinking. Don't judge me. I'm just saying you cannot tell me her books are this lucrative. You can't. And if they are, holy fuck, I need to start getting into the indie publishing business. I've been wanting to for a while now, but writing sometimes takes a back seat because when I do YouTube videos like this, I get money quite quickly. Whereas writing books is difficult and I want to make them good and not have videos like these made about my work. So moving on. Okay, so that diatribe out of the way, we have Addie's POV where she's talking about being at the book signing and she spots her love interest in the crowd. We also get his point of view and we don't know his name until like 300 plus pages into this 500-page book, and his chapters are called Shadow. So I'm going to be using that as a way of like kind of discerning who he is because I think his name reveal is quite funny. I did not realize that the conspiracy theories started really early in the book, so I'm going to kind of detail them and tell you how and when I figured out what was happening. But let's hear from Shadow about his first reaction to seeing Adeline. Also, I pronounce it Adeline because my name is Madeline and it could be Adeline because sometimes people call me Madeline, but I'm gonna say Adeline because I like that better. Cool.
I don't know if God really exists. I don't know if mankind has ever walked on the moon. Nor do I know if parallel universes exist. But what I do know is that I just found the meaning of life sitting behind a table with an awkward smile on her face.
He says this the first time he sees Adeline in the flesh. Like as if he knew her beforehand, like he knew of her beforehand. Despite that fact, he's never seen her before. This is how he reacts upon seeing a random woman in just the crowd, and apparently this is enough for him to fall in love with her. As I said, our damsel, very much going to be in distress, spots her shadow in the crowd, which is kind of hilarious because his job, he's supposed to be kind of sneaky, but she clocks him immediately. And he also has incredibly distinctive features. From across this crowded bookstore, homegirl spots this man, is able to discern that he has one super dark brown eye, another eye that is completely so blue it's almost translucent white, and a scar going through the discolored eye. I don't know which one is supposed to be discolored. We don't know. We don't know if it's like a really intense scar, but otherwise, this man has features that would make him incredibly easy to pick out of a police lineup, if you're getting my drift. Next scene, Addie is out with her BFF, Dea. They're hanging out in a bar, and Addie's kind of just not feeling herself. She's not feeling so great. She's also described to be drinking a blueberry martini out of a straw. And for someone who likes the adult spicy beverage every now and then, I get so fucking annoyed when it's clear that the author has never had a martini or a drink before in their life, because typically speaking, you don't drink martinis with straws. And not only that, blueberry? Like, are we all 21? Like, I'm pretty sure contextually the characters are in their mid-20s, and I just have questions about what people think barology is. I know that I'm a purveyor of different types of alcohol, but what the fuck? Since there's no rest for the wicked, we're gonna speed up this recap because we got places to go. So for whatever reason, the heroine is down in the dumps, so obviously she must take a man back to her place, right? We don't know yet, but the guy that Addie chooses to take back to her house is apparently a super bad dude. But after unsatisfactory coitus with said man, Addie hears a noise outside her house. She goes to investigate. She returns to her house to find the man that she does not know is a bad guy completely fucking missing. Pulled a Houdini and vanished. Also, he died. You fucking heard me. In the time that it took Addie to investigate a noise, her shadow kidnapped a dude out of her house. This is also part of the book where she knows she has a stalker, but like is not super scared of the situation. Considering the fact that this is like not normal stalking. And when I say normal stalking, I think pretty much every feminine person in the world has had one guy or one person show up to a place where they shouldn't be, and you're there too, and they knew you were gonna be there. Like, everybody's had a situation semi like that. Obviously, stalking has layers to it, levels to it, and I'm not trying to discredit anyone who's had very serious situations with said stalking. But the stalking in this book isn't stalking, it's criminal breaking and entering and harassment. Shadow is consistently breaking into Addie's house and drinking her grandfather's expensive scotch and leaving roses for her. Oh, I have to correct myself. It's just whiskey. It's unnamed to my knowledge. And I really, really want to pay an indie author to just pick a fucking type of whiskey. Cause let me bet you fucking money that this guy drinks Jack Daniels, and I do mean that offensively. Not that I don't like Jack Daniels myself, but I just think that people are probably super fucking unimaginative when it comes to like creating their characters and what the character actually drinks. Like, it's whiskey. Okay, what type of fucking whiskey? I'm gonna calm down. So Addie is clearly not safe in her house, right? Does she tell her BFF Dea about the fact that someone is literally coming into her house whenever he pleases? No, because as in her own words,
I'm scared, but I'm also stupid.
It's funny too, because she's fully aware that this is a human person, not a ghost. Like, there's ghosts in this story, but like, they don't do anything. Like, at some point there's like a situation where she specifically talks to her great grandmother's ghost or spirit or something, but like, it never actually matters that there's ghosts. So don't get your hopes up. Don't look at me like that. I was excited for some ghost smut action. I can't be the only one. Back to Dea. As I said, Addie's BFF. So Addie apparently dropped out of college to become a super successful indie author, whereas Dea is a super smart cookie and apparently is part of a conglomerate that hacks big corporations. Remember that for later. Somehow she wormed her way into some hacker group and is pretty much a vigilante for the people, exposing the government secrets to the public. Did you catch this one? If you didn't, that's okay. I didn't either. We're gonna keep it moving. So when Addie tells her super smart hacker friend that someone is breaking into her house on a regular basis, Dea has the completely natural reaction of freaking the fuck out. Dea basically says, ma'am, you need to leave the fucking premises. Let's go. But Miss Thang is still on her dumb bitch behavior, so she just tells Dea, I'm gonna just stab him. If anything, I'm just gonna stab him with a butcher knife if he comes near me. I keep thinking that Darwinism is going to win out and clearly not the final girl actually ends up dead by the end of the book, but like, no, that's not gonna happen. The plot armor be thick. Random aside, because Addie is super successful indie author, she's also renovating her grandmother's house and she Karens the fuck out of her contractors because she thinks they're breaking into her house and stealing her whiskey, which, that just tracks. Also, by the way, the Shadow's names for his chapter is obviously Shadow, but guess what Addie's chapters are called? The Manipulator. There is a like complete detraction of the story where she goes off and explains why her chapters are named that. It's like leagues into the book, so I was already super confused. But basically, she's the manipulator because she writes books for a living. She manipulates people's emotions with her words, and that has to be one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. It's also a tactic that gaslighters use. It's a way to make victims of gaslighting feel like every time they voice their own need, they are manipulating someone. It's fucking dumb. It's just dumb. Okay, so remember the guy that got stolen out of Addie's house? Yeah, so we're back to him. His family is a part of the Seattle Mafia. I didn't plan this, I swear to God. If you watched the last rant review, you would find that hilarious. The actual Seattle Mafia family has nothing to do with this book. Of course, that would be far too much research put into this book, but I like to do research into things I put out on the internet because I don't want to be, you know, wrong. And I actually looked into this because I had never heard of them. They existed in like the 50s, so to speak, and yeah, they're not being referenced here. I think I actually forgot to put this in the script for this video, but at some point, Addie receives a gift box from her shadow with this dude's hands in it. Like, he was a bad person, but like, that's harassment. That's completely, that's disturbing. Like, he's breaking and entering her house and sending her dismembered limbs. Romance, right? This is also where weird things about law enforcement show up. So Addie called the cops, naturally speaking, when someone disappeared from her house, and her shadow is quoted to have deleted all evidence of her reports. But he is not law enforcement, let me be very clear, so he should not have access to that kind of information. Even Dea, her super fun hacker best friend, has this to say about the police.
You know how I feel about cops as it is, but I truly don't believe they will be able to help you.
So at first, I was like, did Dea say ACAB? No, that's not where this is going. So Addie's response to Dea wanting to hire her a bodyguard, well, they can't be more badass than a trained killer, right? And I just have some serious questions for the girlies that like this shit. Why? Why is a trained killer badass if that trained killer is breaking into your house and harassing you with body parts? Like, that's not sexy. And also, you could just hire another trained killer to keep you safe. Like, do you know how bodyguards work? Please explain it to me like I'm 6 years old. So, Seattle PD isn't known to be like the best, don't get me wrong. But apparently they do have pictures of the crime scene from Addie's great-grandmother's murder, which happened, as I said, like in the 40s. And I'm gonna be real with you, I don't think Seattle PD has digitized that evidence, much less even has access to it. But Dea, I'm not quite sure what the pronunciation is on this, hacks the Seattle PD so Addie can have a little subplot of like researching her grandmother's death. Great-grandmother. One of her fucking grandmothers. Because, you know, the murdering psychopath that seems to be obsessed with her is not a high priority at this point. Her great-grandmother's murder is totally taking that cake. Girl does not have her priorities straight. And just in case you thought we were going to get past like really stupid descriptions of things, let me tell you how the author decides to describe a Seattle rainstorm. The wind blows outside the window, rattling the glass. Storm clouds are rolling in. The ever-present weather that plagues Seattle like bad acne. Just when you think you're going to have a lovely sunny day, a storm cloud pops up, ready to burst. Fucking disgusting. It truly appears to me that books like this are from people that cannot be vulgar in their everyday lives, so they take it out on us people who are reading books that they wrote. Like when a kid learns a new swear word and can't stop saying it over and over again, even in situations that it's not relevant for. As a character is also incredibly one-dimensional. When she starts the book, she likes to drink, she likes to fuck, she likes to swear, and by the end of the book, she doesn't drink at all, or at least she stopped drinking because that's apparently a point of contention in this book. And she also has a body count a lot lower than you think it is. Not for murder, she's a good girl, but for sex. She was making it up. She wasn't having stuff like that. Why would you think that? This is a romance book. I think it's time that we talk about Addie's knight and what should be prison issue armor. Shadow, as we're calling him, is the owner of a hacking conglomerate company thing. Do you remember the thing that Dea works for? Yeah, it's the same company. She doesn't know him, right? Of course not. This conglomerate corporation thing attacks other big corporations after being paid by big corporations to steal their secrets or something. Apparently it pays big bucks to fund the thing that Shadow actually likes doing, which is hunting down sex traffickers and saving women and children from what he calls the skin trade. Also, this book has an uncomfortable level of how detailed this is described, and Shadow has no compunction of hiding what he does to pretty much anyone. It's also extremely explicitly detailed. Shadow spends an entire chapter rewatching an incredibly violent scene on video. I will not be discussing or going into depth on any of the contents of said video, but I would like to discuss the actual ramifications of having said scene and what else happens other than that in the scene. Kind of trying to be a little bit do-si-doing around YouTube's guidelines here. Not quite sure what they're gonna allow me to say, so we'll just see how it goes, shall we? This book obviously does not seem to understand the fact that tone and distinction between subject matter is very important when it comes to romance books. At least it is to me as a reader. Obviously, people don't seem to have that same opinion. Having your main character watch a very violent video and being disgusted by said video is a good thing. Bad shit should make people angry and disgusted. But then having in said chapter, same chapter, even within the same paragraph, have that character that is watching the brutalizing video talk about how he wants to go and brutalize the main character in basically the same way doesn't do what you think it does. At best, it clearly shows that the hero can't separate his work from his passions, which is already a problem. At worst, it associates the lust that the hero feels for the main character with the violent video that he is watching and the violent subject matter he is discussing at the time. Which makes it very hard for the audience to separate what part of the scene is supposed to be erotic and what part is supposed to be disturbing. Additionally, I'm using the term hero as a romance genre convention. Obviously, this man is not heroic in of the slightest. I don't care if he is attacking bad guys. He wants to hurt someone in the same way that the video showcases, and he specifies that over and over and over again in this book. Now, before people come at me with pitchforks because they're, mad at me for discussing their kink in a way that they probably don't like, let me talk about something first. I understand that books like this are a way for people to explore kinks in a safe environment. I even understand that people that want to read books like these do not want said kinks to happen to them. Most of these books that explore non-con situations are not books that people want those situations to occur in their everyday life. But what happens in Haunting Adeline is not that. The main character is assaulted by the hero multiple times throughout the book. She's not allowed an ounce of agency in these situations. She's not allowed to give pre-set consent before the scene occurs. And then after she has things happen to her because of the hero, she then goes back and decides, because she enjoyed it after he forced himself on her, that she deserved to have it happen, and that was consensual in retrospect. Additionally, the book bends over backwards so far it has to do a fucking handspring to justify Shadow's actions. Because Addie likes the attention the Shadow is giving her, she deserved the fact that he forced himself on her. Because he's going after bad men, it justifies the fact that he's attacking her. Here's the thing. Just because the guy is saving lives in his job and going after bad men does not mean he's a good guy just because he's only attacking one woman. The amount of women and the amount of things he does is not, he doesn't get to be a good person just because he goes after bad people. If he's doing bad things, he is still a bad person. You get my drift? Just because he says he loves you and only you doesn't mean that he's a good guy and then excuses the abuse. Just like a little PSA for people. I know people that need to hear this in my everyday life. The people that probably need to hear this clicked on the video and are probably already gone, but if they stayed and stuck around, please listen to me and understand that there are people out there that can help you no matter what. No judgment. That out of the way, let's get back to the story. I'm gonna yada yada a bunch of stuff because this book is bloated as hell and we are scratching the surface at this point. So let's go ahead and jump to where we find out Shadow's actual name. So Shadow infiltrates one of his many secret societies, but it seems like there's only one actual society and it's just called the Society with a capital S. Points on lack of creativity on that one. And he introduces himself to the ringleader as Zach. Zach. That can't be right. Oh, don't worry, it's not. We find out later that the man's name is actually Zaid, and all of the millennial women who named their children with a EIGH to be quirky can rejoice. But remember, Zadie Boy here has extremely distinctive features, like the heterochromia thing, yeah. But he is infiltrating these like cabal level secret societies, and no one seems to recognize him ever. We also meet the ringleader of this secret society. His name is Mark here in this scene. There's also like 4 senators and a lawyer for the president that are all part of this group. And if you're picking up something that I missed completely right now, good for you. I am still very much in the dark for what this part of the book is alluding to. I was still hoping that we would get away from this part of this book and go back to maybe Zayd being less of a piece of shit. But we don't. This is a major part of the book from here on out. But first, Addie has a side quest she must go on. She communes with her great-grandmother's spirit. She finds the letters about her great-grandmother's death. Is this ever mentioned ever again? Spirit or otherwise? No. And then the whole crew takes a trip to a haunted carnival. Cheers. That tastes pretty good. I'm really sorry if the lighting has changed. This is taking a while to film. This is where the book just gets lost in its own damn sauce. Plot lines start and then end abruptly. It seems to magically get granted the ability to teleport to anywhere that the author wants him to be in any scene, regardless of context of where he was previously. It gets so weird here in this part of the book that I honestly feel that maybe the author deleted some portions of the book to get past the ban, but I can't tell because obviously I don't have access to any previous versions. So if anyone knows what actually happened in this book or has an earlier version, please let me know. I don't know if I'd fucking read it, but there has to be a reason why there's like distinct scenes that are just abruptly ended and then the next chapter does not pick them up, and Zayd goes from like one side of the carnival to the other in the span of like a second. Like he is over in one place talking to people and then all of a sudden in a completely different part of the carnival in the next chapter. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It was a truly nauseating experience, and I could not understand what the fuck was going on for most of it. But Haunted Carnival! Super boring scene, especially because of the fact that I didn't know what was going on most of the time. But there is this, like, novella called Satan's Affair, which you apparently don't have to read, but I don't understand how you wouldn't have to read it for this book to make sense. The secret society dudes are here, but there's also this random chick that shows up and she apparently doesn't like these guys and starts brutally murdering them. I don't understand why you wouldn't need to know who she is. She does not come back after this scene. She just shows up, kills a bunch of people, and then leaves, which good for her, girl boss all the way. I just don't know why you're here. I don't know what the fuck you do for the story. You're not supposed to be relevant here, but you don't make any sense otherwise. There's also a sex scene in a hall of mirrors that unfortunately is completely unimaginative and pretty fucking boring, to be honest. There is also a line where Addie describes Zayd's heterochromia as yin-yang eyes. And I don't know about you, but I just find that a little bit racist. I didn't like that. I don't like that at all. Like, the blatant disregard for storytelling and craft is horrendous at this part of the book, but it's working for some people because this book is a 4.10 on Goodreads with 92,000 reviews, so fuck me, I guess. So Zayd and Mark, the ringleader of the Cabal situation, are out for a stroll and they decide to stop at a restaurant and get lunch, and guess who's sitting there? Adeline, drinking a margarita in the middle of the day, writing her books. Because this is a romance book and the main character is present while a bad guy is present, the bad guy instantly needs to kidnap her. She's just that irresistible. And poor Zayd, he's so very dumb. Just so stupid. He cannot handle the fact that another man is looking at his bitch in any span of the imagination. So instead of, I don't know, just telling the dude, oh, don't pick her, pick somebody else, he straight up tells this very dangerous man that Addie is his girlfriend. And bear in mind, they've never actually officially met, Zayd and Addie. Like, at this point, she doesn't actually know who he is. So then what does the super evil, nefarious, evil man do after finding out that Addie is Zayd's, girlfriend? He goes up and introduces himself. Here's a dramatic reenactment. Hi, you must be Adeline. I'm Mark. It's so nice to meet you. Addie has to be like, oh, hi, Mark. And then there's one of the most awkward scenes in literary history that I have ever read, where the main character has to spend an entire lunch scene talking with two men that she does not know, fully aware of the fact that she could be murdered very quickly by either one of them. And one of them is saying that he's her boyfriend, even though she's never technically officially met him. Like, I know that I said in the last rant review that I don't get crime mafia romances, they're not my thing, and like this probably has a pretty hefty influence on this book. The only one I sort of enjoyed was Den of Vipers, because that book is just batshit insane and doesn't take itself seriously. But this book so desperately wants to be taken seriously. I cannot do it. But on top of that, this book just can't fucking commit. Are Zaid and Addie reincarnation of her family members? Are they replaying the same sick game that her great-grandmother did with Ronaldo? Are they possessed by ghosts? No? More information about the stupid society that Zaid's hunting down? Fucking great! Like Zaid verbatim says.
And the reason I stalk you, little mouse, is because I want to. Everything I do in life is my choice. I choose my morals. I choose the ones that are worth saving and the ones that are worth killing. And I choose you.
To quote the great Avril Lavigne, it could not be any more obvious that this guy is a bad dude. And I know that there's a bunch of people in my comments right now going, yeah, that's the hot part. Justifying his actions by the fact that he fights other bad dudes is exactly the reason why domestic violence rates within police enforcement is really high. Maddie said ACAB. There was a line when I was doing this that I put here. The author wrote ass over teacup instead of ass over tea kettle. And like, you can't even get the fucking idioms correct. Are you serious? As in most KU romances, the last 100 pages of the book are the most crazy. So let's just go ahead and get right into it, because I'm tired of talking about this book. I will condense all of this information because, once again, this is rotting my brain from the inside and I need to exercise this as quickly as possible. So the game plan is to take down Mark and the Cabal and all of that situation. So Zaid infiltrates this society once again. Nobody considers the fucking heterochromia is weird at all. And he rescues a small girl during this scene from these people. She was going to be sacrificed and he gets her away from these bad guys. And he has a conversation with her where she asks him to be her daddy. And man thinks about it. Like, he asks her if she knows where her parents are, and of course she doesn't. She's kidnapped. Why would she know where her parents are? And then she asks him to adopt her, practically, and then this man considers it? Like, he's thinking about kidnapping the already kidnapped child while the fake FBI agents are raiding the secret cabal. Oh, did I not mention that he hired a bunch of fake FBI agents to break up this society? 'Cause he did! During this part, it became very clear to me that the author was using a very disgruntled tone with law enforcement and the US government. And it was kind of like something about it was just beating me over the head with a conspiracy theory that's incredibly prevalent right now in the United States. And it wasn't being like critical of police enforcement in, an ACAB kind of way. It was more of a quality anonymous kind of way, if you get my drift. Around here is where a light bulb came on in my head. Kind of like in season 2 of Euphoria, where Maddie's sitting in the play and she goes, is this play about us? Except it was me sitting on the couch going, is this book about QAnon? Color me shooketh when I went back to the beginning of the book when I was writing my review, and I came upon the trigger warnings that Kindle skipped entirely. It actually says that the author had no intention of writing about right-wing conspiracies, but instead only wrote from her demented imagination, common conspiracies in the media, and many occult horror movies my dad used to watch growing up. Which, like, no. The fact that there's a typo in her trigger warnings is just like a fucking yikes, my dude. You don't get to say shit like this comes from your imagination. I'm sorry. You also add, like, these are common conspiracies in the media. Yeah, they are common conspiracies in the media. That's because they're propaganda. Like, the main fucking plotline throughout the whole book is just this one conspiracy. Like, it's just, it detracts from the actual premise of the book. Like, the stalking in this book, here, the conspiracies, like, the whole fucking thing. Like, completely derails the subject matter entirely. We started off a little bit low-key talking about the moon landing and the beginning, if you remember that. And then we just keep going from there, which according to some girl I knew in college can be like a gateway conspiracy theory. So like stick that into your tin hat and smoke. Here's the part of the video I have to point out that conspiracy theories housed in a book like this, where most people do not consider this like highbrow literature, isn't necessarily that big of a deal. Okay, it just isn't. But as I am someone who creates content on the internet and can be considered someone who influences people to look up said content, I have to always think about the things that I'm platforming. And you should also think about the ideas and ideologies that you platform in the book that you publish. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of the concept of like, you are what you eat. And most people will understand that when you eat a cheeseburger, you don't also turn yourself into a cheeseburger, but it will have an effect on your body regardless of if you have a high metabolism or not. I also want a cheeseburger now. Now, I am not saying you can't read or eat whatever the fuck you like. You do you. I'm just saying that when you surround yourself with certain types of media, you may very well end up thinking along the lines of what that media wants you to think. It's how conspiracy theories have emboldened anti-Semitic tropes over the past like 50-ish years. Why 9 times out of 10, if you watch one certain type of news channel, you will always believe what the newscaster is telling you because that's the only way you're getting your news. To give it a more Gen Z definition, how you ever had to restart your TikTok page. When you go into the new account, you have a For You page, which, as I've had a commenter say that that's fucking redundant, FYP is For Your page. When you're on that account, you're going to get content you usually don't see. So it's kind of jarring to see content that you do not like. And it takes a little bit of time for the algorithm to understand what you want, and then it creates a little bit of a bubble. So you never see the other content. Doesn't mean it's not out there, but you're never exposed to it. This is a pretty roundabout way of me trying to explain to people who probably haven't watched this far in the video, that this book is problematic in a lot of other ways than just the toxic romance. It just is. Because even when you're reading a book like this that doesn't outright say what it's about, you've got this kind of tone about government and police enforcement that clearly seems to associate the bad guys in this book with the government. And that is uncomfy and a way that can breed this type of thinking in people that don't understand what they're reading about. Or, in this case, potentially what the author was writing about. But back to the book. So Zaid is still off saving the children. Some of the Cabal members go to jail, but they're out in like 10 seconds, I don't know. And then there's like more of the book left, so he has to go off and infiltrate yet another society, but like it's the same society. But there's another scene where he infiltrates another creepy group of men, basically. And that situation doesn't seemingly have an ending, it just kind of stops. And then Addie, at the very end of the book, gets into a car accident and then kidnapped. I also think they figured out who murdered her great-grandmother, but it was such a non-issue that I don't care about that plotline at all anymore. There is a sequel to this book. I'm sure it resolves some of the conflictions that have happened. I don't care enough to read it at this point, so it depends on if you guys want me to read it. It won't be anytime soon, but you guys can let me know if you want me to do that video. Leave a skull emoji down below in the comments. I'm gonna go now, guys. Like, subscribe, all the good stuff. Bye! Oh my god, I'm stuck.